Welcome to Hard Time Sports. I'm Matthew. This topic is NCAA March Madness round of 32 for the 2018 tournament. All right, we have games today and games tomorrow. Let's start off in the South region. The Virginia Cavaliers choke artist. They became the first number one seed to lose to a 16 seed. It was 135-0 before yesterday's game, and they lost to a number 16 seed. Killed 3.2 million people's brackets that had this done. So now let's go to my picks. So for tomorrow's game, we have UMBC versus Kansas State. I think Kansas State will beat UMBC because sometimes when you come off a big-time win, your next game, you probably have a letdown and you're going to lose. So I think Kansas State is going to beat the 16 seed UMBC in a round of 32. Now let's go to the next game. You have Kentucky versus Buffalo. I think Kentucky is going to beat Buffalo. Buffalo beat Arizona, another upset, but I think Kentucky will beat them. Now let's go to the bottom half of the South region. You have Loyola Chicago versus Tennessee. I'm going to take Tennessee to win this game. Now let's go to the very bottom of the South region. You have Nevada and Cincinnati. I'm going to take Cincinnati to beat Nevada in this game tomorrow. Now let's go to the West region. You have Xavier versus Florida State. I think Xavier is going to beat Florida State to win that game. A 1 versus a 9. Now let's go to the next game in the West region. You have Ohio State and Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga is going to win that game. Now let's go to the next game in that region. You have Houston against Michigan. I think Michigan is going to win that game. Better team, playing better. And in the last game of that region, North Carolina against Texas A&M. I have North Carolina winning that game. So those are the South and Midwest region picks so far. Now let's go up to the East. You have Villanova against Bama. I think Villanova is going to beat Alabama. Better team, more experience, just a better roster. They'll beat Bama today. Now let's go to the next game in the East region. You have West Virginia against Marshall. I think West Virginia is going to beat Marshall after Marshall upset Wichita State. Now let's go to the next game in that region. You have Florida against Texas Tech. I think Florida is going to beat Texas Tech. Now let's go to the next game in that region. This is going to be a killer. You have Butler against Purdue. I picked Purdue to win that game. The only problem is Purdue is going to be out for the rest of the tournament with their best big man, Isaac Hayes, with a fractured elbow. Do I think it's going to be tough? Yes, but I picked Purdue as my pick before when I filled out this bracket. Didn't know he was going to get hurt. So at the end of the day, I'm going to stay with Purdue to beat Butler. Now let's go to the Midwest region. Kansas versus Seton Hall. I think Kansas is going to beat Seton Hall. More experience, better team. Let's go to the next game in that bracket. Clemson and Auburn. I'm going to take Auburn to win that game, is what I had picked. Better team. Let's go to the next game in that bracket. Syracuse, Michigan State. Two storied teams. I think Michigan State has too much for Syracuse, who is offensively challenged. So at the end of the day, I think Michigan State beats Syracuse to go to the Sweet 16. Now, let's go to my last pick in the round of 32. Duke and Rhode Island. As much as I can't stand Duke, I think Duke will beat Rhode Island. Should be the easiest game of the second round of the tournament. So Duke over Rhode Island. So let's go back and redo all my picks. Kansas State will beat UMBC. Kentucky will beat Buffalo. Tennessee will beat Loyola Chicago. Cincinnati will beat Nevada. That'll be my picks for the South. In the West, Xavier will beat Florida State. Gonzaga will beat Ohio State. Michigan will beat Houston, and UNC, North Carolina will beat Texas A&M. Those are my picks in the West. Now let's go over to the East. Nova will beat Alabama. West Virginia will beat Marshall. Florida will beat Texas Tech, and Purdue will beat Butler. Those are my picks in the East. Now in the Midwest, Kansas will beat Seton Hall. Auburn will beat Clemson. Michigan State will beat Syracuse, and Duke will beat Rhode Island. Those are my picks for the Midwest. So those are my picks for the round of 32. I'm Matthew. My next video will be my picks in the Sweet 16 to get to the Elite 8 next week. I'm Matthew. Enjoy the blog.